Thank you so much. Actually, I'm not ashamed of how much I love Muesli, and I really thank Oxford for that. Hello. Like you said, my name is Jessica Lord. And I love open source. I love building tools for people. I'm proudly the 4th most contributed to project on all of GitHub. I'm also the only individual on this list. I'm above React, which is pretty amazing. It's also like the only fun thing on this list. I mean, they're useful, and I use NPM every day, and I love NPM. But this project Patchwork of mine it goes along with another project called Get It, which is an Electron app I built that teaches people Git and GitHub, and there's a little robot that collaborates with you. But I just think it's interesting that, I mean, these are all tools, and of course we need tools. We're all here talking about tools all day. But where are the things for learning? Where are the things that are opening up the web to people? Where are the things that are making the internet a place where we can have fun, experiment, and do different things like that? So this talk is kind of along those lines, but about something really exciting that gets your blood pumping, spreadsheets. But talking about spreadsheets in a way that using tools so that we can make getting things online and playing with the web more fun and approachable for people. So we go way back on the time machine to 2012, and I had quit my job at Boston City Hall, where I was an urban designer in the technology department there. And I did this thing called Code for America, which has similar aims to GDS here, if you're familiar with GDS, but it tries to build better software for government and open source and things like that. That's my little head. And so I came into that fellowship having come from City Hall and wanting to make better use of existing technology that people at City Hall weren't using, things that were free resources, that were easy to use, that made the web easy to access. And I really thought people could be doing more themselves and avoiding these IT department bottlenecks, where the IT department was installing printers and scanners, but they were also making every update to every department's website, and so websites never changed. So I guess I should look at this screen here. I made this magic WordPress theme, which really was just a WordPress theme with a bunch of JavaScript in it that allowed the city I was working with to visualize a budget of theirs. They wanted to be transparent about their spending, and I thought the people in the budget department should be able to maintain their website themselves. And so I set it up with a Google spreadsheet so that once everything was connected, the people in the budget department would only ever have to update the spreadsheet. And the WordPress theme was open source, of course, and so any other city could use it too. And it was set up so that you could actually, when you created a new page in WordPress, all you had to do was give it a title that matched one of your rows in your spreadsheet and then hit done, and it would generate all the maps and charts and everything automatically for you. But sad face, not every Code for America story has a great ending, and in my case, the city and the county hated each other, but they both shared this budget, and the county rebuilt the site in .NET, closed the source code, and they closed all the access to the data, which was actually something else that was great about the spreadsheet, was that it made the data accessible to people. We talked to journalists in the town, and they had a hard time even reporting about this budget and things because they could never get the data. It was never in one place. There was no way that they could actually have this and report on it. And then that didn't change. And it's sad, but happy. It worked out for me because I got a Code Sprint grant from Mozilla Open News, which is a part of Mozilla that focuses on tools for journalism and media and open source. And so I got that grant to pull out all of the JavaScript from that WordPress theme I'd made and make it into a standalone library. And so that became Sheetsee.js. And that's really when I became hooked on spreadsheets. I feel like the slide's ridiculous now. And just thought everything I did I could put on spreadsheets, and I really felt like they were this amazing tool that weren't wasn't really being appreciated. And when I think about this spectrum of websites, when you have, the simplest website you can imagine, a static page with no data, and then the most massive web app that you can imagine. But there's all this space in the middle that we aren't having fun with that still requires all these toolings that we're listening to talks about this week, and we have to pick this, and do we have to pick this, And so despite all the tricks that we know as developers about where to get free hosting and things like that, there's still a bunch of hurdles, because maybe you're on that threshold. Do you need to pay the $5 for a DigitalOcean droplet? Can you use Heroku? Are you going to have to set up a database? Are you going to have collaborators? Does their dev environment match yours? Is everybody going to be able to work on this? What if you had a project that you want to do in your community, and you were working with people who weren't developers? What are you going to do? So there's still a ton of hurdles in this space, and I think that spreadsheets are the magic sauce. This is like mustard sauce. That we can fill this middle area with a lot of fun stuff, because it's a spreadsheet is a database that's already set up, and there's an interface on it that people already know. Like, a range of people from a range of backgrounds can already interface with a spreadsheet. They're free, and I'm going to say spreadsheets as short for Google Spreadsheets is what I'm talking about most of the time. There's no install, right? There's no dev environment. They're easy to use, and it's easy to share. You can invite collaborators. You can just share it publicly without having people edit it. And there are some limits, right? There's a cell and column limit. I think it's like 400,000 cells. And then I've seen Google Spreadsheets go down when they get too popular. But again, don't build your company on this. Don't build your massive, huge web app on this. Just do all the fun stuff in the middle. And the most exciting thing to me is once it's set up and hooked to the website, you're just interfacing with the spreadsheet. There's no deploying. You just enter in new information to the spreadsheet, and every time someone hits your site, they're getting the latest information. But this was years ago. And I thought, does this matter now? When the organizers reached out to me and asked me to talk about Sheetsee, I was like, really? My spreadsheet library? But honestly, this month, March 6th, someone asked, why can't I get my spreadsheet JSON? And someone was like, have you tried Sheetsee? And I'm like, wow, we really got to get better tools and better things, because nothing has improved in this space, really. So, Sheetsee.js. It's a little client-side library to visualize spreadsheet data. And I've just rewritten it for this talk, so woohoo! There's a whole other talk I could give on rewriting a library you wrote 4 years ago. But also, I feel like I need to clarify this, because sometimes I talk to people and I have to say it 5 times, but it's seeing a sheet. Get it? I'm not good at naming. It has this little website, but you're here, so you don't need it. The visualizing part. So Sheetsee lets you visualize your spreadsheet data in maps or sortable and searchable tables. And your spreadsheet data, that's JSON that you get back from using a library called Tabletop.js, which does the messy work of talking to the Google API and cleaning up everything that gives back to you. So Tabletop parses all of that and gives you back the JSON that you would expect to see would come from your spreadsheet without all the extra stuff that Google actually puts in there. You do have to make your spreadsheet public to do this. You don't have to make it editable by people, but you do have to publish it so that it can be accessed and the data pulled from it. And Sheetsee is broken down into modules. The first module is called Sheetsee with nothing after the E. And that's the command line tool to build your own Sheetsee, because I also feel strongly that you shouldn't have to have all of the library if you aren't going to use all of the library. So if you only want to do the tables part, you can use NPM and Node and build a Sheetsee version that just has the part that you want to use in it. But of course, you don't have to. If you want the full library, it's always available on the Sheetsee.js website. And then Maps and tables are the modules that handle those functions, and then Sheetsee Core has a bunch of methods in it for really simple data, like working with your data. So the command line works like this. You would npm install Sheetsee, go into your directory, and then tell it -t or -m, depending on if you wanted maps or tables, --save, and it will save it there for you. And so it bundles also the two dependencies that Sheetsee has, which is must-js for templating, and then leaflet.js for maps, which is down from also having jQuery and Mapbox. Next. So when I say Sheetsee Tables, it's also more than tables, because you really don't have to do strict HTML tables. Anything that you can put in a template, you can use the Sheetsee Tables module to do. So like this is an example of having like a local tool lending site set up where you're using a spreadsheet to track like what neighbors are borrowing what, and this is obviously not a table, so you can really design it however you want. This is one I did earlier this year because stuff was happening in America, and I thought I could keep track of it. And that lasted a month. But this is also a spreadsheet. I started a spreadsheet keeping articles about what was happening and try to categorize them and stuff. So again, you don't have to strictly use a table. The maps, though, that's pretty straightforward. It's a map. You can choose clustering or not. You can add pop-ups to it. Sheetsee Charts, that used to exist, but not anymore. Remove features. Happier life. So using Sheetsee, you first start with Tabletop so that you can get your data. And Tabletop just needs your spreadsheet key, and then it will ask you for a callback to where to send the data when it's fetched your data. And then you would create a callback function for that, and then that's where you would use all your Sheetsee things. And if you're using the maps or tables Sheetsee modules, you will create a placeholder div with, create a placeholder div correctly. So that Sheetsee knows where to insert the stuff into the DOM. And then with Sheetsee Maps, it has two methods. One method is to just create GeoJSON, which is something that if you wanted GeoJSON of your spreadsheet data, you could just do that and not actually visualize anything. You could just generate GeoJSON, which is geographic map data. But if you want to create your map, you would use Sheetsee load map, and then it takes this object of options, which includes your data, the div that your map is going to be in. You can tell it what parts of your spreadsheet to include in the pop-ups, and then a little template using mustache for the pop-ups if you want it to cluster, and then if you want to set a color for the markers. And then Sheetsee Tables is similar also. You have Sheetsee make table, and you pass it in options of your data, if you want pagination and how much, where it should put your table. You have the option of including a little search input if you want. And then Sheetsee needs to know where the template is for what it's supposed to map out. And then, so Sheetsee Table also just has two methods. And so the other one is to initiate the table filter if you're wanting to use filtering. And then your template is a mustache template. And like I said, it doesn't have to be an HTML table, but it can be. But it's however you want your data to appear. And then also, if you are using HTML tables, if you add the class T header to your table headers, then Sheetsee will make them sortable. And then Sheetsee Core, these are some of the functions for just like getting the min and max from some of your columns and things like that. So you can build things with this. And beyond the basics of just spitting out your spreadsheet into another sort of table, but it's on a website, you can do things like use query strings, right? So if your spreadsheet has address and city data, you can create Google Maps query strings so that you can create a page that will open up a Google Maps for people. You can use maths. I know length is not actually math, but you get the point. You can just use like vanilla JavaScript things too, right, with your data. You can also use if this then that, which I do. Everything I'm doing on my phone is basically going into a spreadsheet. And you can create all of these, well, they're called applets now. They used to be called recipes. But you can connect to these different things, and then it will generate all of that stuff into a spreadsheet. So like I have Instagram and Twitter and all this stuff. And what's cool is you have your own copy of the data that you're generating, and then you get to choose how to display it and what you do with it. Also, Google Forms generates spreadsheets. So you can even abstract the UI even more. If you don't want people interacting with a spreadsheet, they can just interact with a Google form, which is sending stuff to a spreadsheet, which is sending stuff to a site. So I really like this idea of using existing resources to reduce barriers to the web and making more opportunities to be creative, do an idea that seems fun, or it seemed fun before you thought of all the setup you were going to have to do before you did it. So one thing that's really great is GitHub Pages, which is free static site hosting from GitHub. It also will host Jekyll sites, but it can now be hosted from any branch. It used to it had to be a GH Pages named branch, but now you can select any branch from your settings, which is great because when you're trying to explain these things to new developers, it was kind of cumbersome to explain, like, just believe me, you need to name it this, and it's magic, and it'll work. It now supports HTTPS, and if you're creating a website that is designed to be reused, someone can fork it, and GitHub won't automatically host that site, but as long as you make one commit, then GitHub will start hosting that forked site. And so in the case of Sheetsee sites, you have to change your spreadsheet key anyways, so that one key, or that one commit can be changing your spreadsheet key. And you can do this all in browser. So again, you can work with people who don't need to set up a dev environment. They can do this all on the web. I have a site called Fork and Go because I really wanted to spread this idea of creating sites that people could fork and use so that getting up and on the web, getting a live and hosted site was actually just 3 steps, which I still think is such an incredible idea. But there's something better now, and it's called Glitch, which came out a few weeks ago. It's by Fog Creek, and it is like the Fork and Go idea, but 100 times better because it's actually free hosting and servers for Node apps. And it has an in-browser editor that is collaborative also. And so in Glitch, you remix a site in the same way that you would fork a site on GitHub. And you can also connect it to your GitHub, but you can create a full Node app that's persistent, and someone can basically fork it and then start editing in the browser. They don't need to set up any local dev environments. They edit there. They can invite people to share and collaborate on it. And the whole idea behind Glitch, too, is that it's fun, that the web is fun, that we can make stuff and build stuff and try out ideas and be messy and build stuff on the web. And there's people doing good stuff, too, so people have started building stuff about being more informed about what's happening in America. But so I've made some Glitch sites. The first one is Sheetsee.glitch.me, and this is a Sheetsee site set up for you, but because we have a free server involved, it's actually backing up your data. So if something goes wrong with Google or someone deletes your spreadsheet that you gave access to and you shouldn't have, you will have that backed up. And so similar to when you are forking on GitHub, all you need to do is change the spreadsheet key. But here, there's no commits. It's literally redeploying at every keystroke. So you can sit with this open in one tab and then be editing this in the other tab and watch these things flash because it's constantly rebuilding and deploying your site. So it's so awesome. So Sheetsee.glitch.me is a Sheetsee thing already set up. And then Spreadsheet.glitch.me is one that will return your spreadsheet to you in JSON. It creates an API endpoint here. So if you tell it your spreadsheet key, you can use this in your app, and you can get your spreadsheet as JSON and then do whatever you want on your own. But if you aren't comfortable using an endpoint like that, you can come to the actual site and then just paste in your spreadsheet key and then get it. So I will tell this person that they can get this now. And so, yeah, this was about spreadsheets and forms and other things and forks and glitches. But really, for me, the whole point is about scaling down to people up, about scaling down what you're doing, using simple existing technologies and finding ways to include more people and give more people approachable access to the web. The end. Thank you.